description. So we'll watch it at a quarter speed and then we'll start breaking it down. So if we go back here, one of the things I actually want to show you is the height of the ball toss. There is a lot of information on this on YouTube by now. And in general, I'm seeing a great trend that players are being encouraged to lower the height of their ball toss. But just as a comparison between these two players, I'm going to set down a timer. And I want you to see player on the left, Pablo, just how soon he has tossed compared to Kyrgios. He's tossed the ball 0.04 of a second before Kyrgios, and I've synced the footage so that they're hitting at the same time. Now, if I set down another timer here, and this idea has been popularized by Ryan Reid at 2 Minute Tennis, we can see that Kyrgios's contact will fall at 0.7 or 0.07 of a second. While we see on the left here, Pablo, he's taking a second and 100ths of a second to contact with the ball. I don't need to go too much in depth, but in general, the higher you toss, the faster the ball falls. Then you also have to think about the variables. If you release the ball a little bit to the left, it's going to go further off to the left. We haven't even talked about the sun, the wind, and then there's score pressure. So I really encourage a lot of players to film yourselves and then see how high you toss. On the left here, Pablo's toss is even out of the frame. The next part we're going to address is really the swing, which is a critical component for serving well and something that players routinely mess up at the club and recreational level. And it is difficult. It's difficult to move the racket the way that Kyrgios is moving it. But if we look at the best servers in the world, whether they were on the ATP or WTA tour, they follow very similar characteristics to what Kyrgios is doing compared to what this club level player or Pablo is doing on the left here. So first things that we can see are Pablo doesn't really go into a palm down position. Palm down or knuckles up. I believe Vic Braden talked about knuckles up, but palm down is the more popularized phrase these days. Look at where Pablo is. Look at where Kyrgios is. So I'll give you the caveats. There are a few players who, after the racket clears the head, their hand starts to open up a bit more. So someone like a Roddick or a Federer. But in general, you want to train yourself to have your palm down or knuckles up. And why that is it just allows you to get a little bit more external rotation. So external rotation is basically this position here. And if we cite Bruce Elliott's research, it accounts for around 40% of racket velocity at contact. So meaning the deeper you can get into that position and essentially the faster you can get the racket moving out of there into contact. So you externally rotate, you put the internal rotators on stretch, and that's what allows you to move the racket really fast. Now I want you to watch here with the club level player. One of the things they really struggle with is A, we just touched on being in that palm up position, but B, it's just learning to really relax. And I'm borrowing a phrase here from Jeff Lewis Tennis, who describes this really well, is collapse. They really struggle to collapse the hand, the elbow, and the shoulder because they're often holding a lot of tension. They're thinking about multiple things. They might be thinking about, I can't open up my hand here, or I need to drive the edge of the racket out to the contact, which is what we can see Pablo is trying to do here. But you need to be really loose and relaxed and teach yourself to really relax in this part of the swing. That'll just allow you to get a deeper external rotation, allowing you to put those internal rotators on stretch and move into the contact. The next thing I want to kind of touch on is you want to also have a little bit of separation. So separation is just the angle between the hips and the shoulders. So we can see that Kyrgios's shoulders are turned more than his hips. Whereas if we compare Pablo here, his hips and shoulders are essentially aligned along the same angle. So there's a lot of components that go into hitting the serve well. You've all heard about the shoulder rotation. There's also transverse rotation, which is another way of just talking about separation that you're creating. And essentially, you want to generate that energy from the ground upwards and unwind those segments into the contact. And one of the ways to use your body more effectively and efficiently is just to learn to turn the shoulders a little more than the hips. And here we can really see that Kyrgios is unwinding those segments along with a great relaxed external rotation into internal rotation, or a racket drop, which allows him to move the racket really fast into that contact. Just as an added kind of point, sometimes you'll see players emulating this, where the hand goes out upon landing. But really the important part is, what is it doing at the contact? You want to basically stop that left arm from moving at the contact. It should act as a reactive brake, and it'll allow the rest of your body to speed up into the contact. Now, some pretty important caveats here. Let's say Pablo worked really hard for 3 months to change his serve mechanics so that he would serve similarly to Nick Kyrgios. If he brought down the height of his ball toss, if he learned to really relax that hand, elbow, and shoulder, get more external rotation into internal rotation, and if he learned to really get a little more separation between the body segments. Would that mean he could step up to the line and serve as hard as Nick Kyrgios? No, that's not how it works, and this is something I struggle to convey to club and recreational players. The technique is really important. I view it as the fundamental to building a really great game, but you also need to understand that Kyrgios is essentially a world-class athlete in how much force he can generate from the ground up into making contact with that ball. You can't just rely solely on technique. You also need to consider a plan for your body. Are you as strong as you need to be? Are you flexible? Can you generate force effectively from the ground? And the last part is, Kyrgios just has had so many more reps serving efficiently compared to Pablo that he has way more myelin built up. So he can execute that serve really fast. Myelin is just a fatty substance that insulates neural circuits that allows you to fire them faster. While I definitely think that Pablo would benefit a lot from emulating what Kyrgios is doing, from reducing the height of his toss to learning to relax the arm, the elbow, the shoulder, and the hand, and also getting a little more separation, you also need to understand that there are other factors that go into hitting the serve really well. Will it help? Absolutely. If Pablo were to be able to click his fingers and emulate his serve mechanics, he would definitely be able to serve better. But there are many other pieces to that pot. So there you go, everyone. Hope that helped. Hope it was valuable for you to see the differences between a rec player and a professional who's at the top of the serving ladder anyways. If you made it all the way here, please like and subscribe. It does help the channel grow as it's relatively new. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there's any questions, and I hope to see you all soon. If you want to work with me, all of my information is in the description below.